And that probably goes a bit of a way to explaining the name of Kabouter games, because Kabouters have to do with myth and legend here in North Brabant. Kabouters are the little guys with the red conical hats that live in mushrooms. So,
kind of like a gnome.
Yeah, kind of like they taught, according to legend, they taught people how to make wooden shoes. So, which is about the Dutchest thing possible. Right now, I am super into Shadow Dark, like virtually everyone else, I guess. They just won all the Annies for all the things, and well deserved. It's a fantastic game. It's how I wanted 5th edition to be when 5th edition came out, and yeah, I'm totally in love with it. I'm usually playing my own game, Spears and Spells. I like the unpredictability of how things like character traits interact. Like one of the things that when I was working on Spears and Spells is that, everything is based on character talents. All the stuff you get on like a 5e character, you level up, you get this new little thing you can do. Well, there's just a big old list in the Spears and Spells game that you just pick a talent. You want to have scaly skin. Okay. Your armor increases. You want to, I don't know, be able to bite people and regain health. You can do that too. Because there's nothing like, there's no races or species or anything like that. Anyone that isn't, your classic cishet white dude probably still lives in his mom's basement.
Yeah.
If you're not that, go away. And I really strongly disagree with that.
Yeah.
So I found, and this OSR for All logo I found it, with the creators basically said, here, take it, use it, spread it far and wide, go forth,
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, it has the rainbow coloring. It is, yeah, I mean, I have to confess, I'm not a fan of 5th edition at all. But I'm not one of these people that moans about the wokeness of it. I just don't like how overpowered the characters are in 5th edition, and the fact that it takes like 2.5 hours to make a character.
I did a magic items book for 5e and Shadow Dark.
Ah.
That is, I don't have a copy of it here. Vaults of Tenebris is what it's called.
Oh.
That was the last Kickstarter we ran.
Right, okay. I'm going to have to check that one out.
So that came just because I had a metric crap ton of magic items, because I do.
Yeah, so for those who haven't seen it, the cover, getting a bit of glare for legendary locations, it is absolutely beautiful art. And it introduces us to 2 characters who you have then gone and NPC'd up beautifully. Jay and Bob the Unspeaking.
Yes.
I don't think we can finish our talk today without talking about them. I cannot wait to bring them into a campaign. I think they are fantastic. Tell us a bit about them.
Like, what's a new, I mean, I think like from saying there was like kind of more traditional action films, and now you're into martial arts, which is quite different to like traditional American action, isn't it?
So you are absolutely right. At this point of time, 1970s, prior to 1970s, there were a lot of martial art movies coming from Hong Kong. We used to call them karate movie or Hong Kong movie. There are a few names.
Yeah.
For us, for people in the West, in the Western cinema.
Yeah.
But over there in Hong Kong, in China, in Japan, those movies were very popular.
Mm-hmm.
And there were television shows, even in Japan. I must admit, I've never seen a Hong Kong movie in my life before.
Right.
And then the head of the company, Menachem Golan, we mentioned him earlier, he called me into the office. He said, the world wants more ninja, because they were selling movies all over the world. We need more ninja movies. But this time, we're going to make a movie which is called American Ninja, and the hero will be an American. So this is his idea. It's not my idea. It's his idea to not only that we we stole the ninja ideas from Japan, and we in Hollywood were making movies because there were television shows about ninjas in Japan before. Now we are taking it one step further. We are Americanizing this ninja character. He's not even Japanese anymore.
I think the question everyone asks, just the title Electric Boogaloo, where did that come from? Do you know?
Okay, I was not involved in this, in the title.
Yeah.
When they asked me, when they hired me, when they asked me to direct the movie, the name was already there. Break-In 2 or Breakdance 2, Electric Boogaloo. And half of the script was already there. Now, because this Electric Boogaloo phrase became so synonymous with the 80s and even today in a negative way, but but because it became so popular and big, people started to ask, not me, but researchers, even researchers and essays have been written about it. Shabadoo was introduced now, and Michael Shrimp, and there are many theories when it came from. But there was a style, as I understand it, there was a style of dancing, boogaloo, which goes back to the 50s, 60s. Michael Shrimp, his name is Boogaloo Shrimp. And it was before the movie,
Yeah.
So there is a historical element to this name, Boogaloo, or Boogaloo dancing, or electric Boogaloo. So somehow, from what I understand, the most possible story is that Shabadoo suggested to Menachem Golan to add it to Breaking 2 to add electric Boogaloo. But it was a phrase that existed before the movie. After the movie, it became what it is, and today in the general English language, it means sequel. So when the special effect, wires floating, the actors up on the air, we really performed it. I did not, thank God. So if you see a car going into a lake in the movie Ninja 3: The Domination, we really had a car going into a lake. It was not the Fast and the Furious, which many effects are digitally created. So that's the nice thing. And that's what is commemorized today. And this is the legacy of those movies, the independent, low-budget genre movies of the 80s and the beginning of the 90s. Nowadays, any filmmaker or any inspired filmmaker, a storyteller, if he wants to put together a story, a movie, all he needs is a few $100 camera. Nowadays, 4K cameras don't cost, they are less than $1,000. Lights are very cheap, small and cheap, editing on the computer at home. So the technical process became very, very simple, much cheaper, much simpler.
Yeah.
And if you are engaged as a young filmmaker, if you are engaged in a simple story that involve human relationship, dramatic story, then it's easy. You need actors and you need your crew, skeleton crew, few people, and you can film your movie. If you want to deal with something more involved, sci-fi, science fiction, action, it will become expensive because of what's in front of the camera, not because of the camera. Because but for people who are talented and they want to tell a story, my advice to them, that go ahead and do it.
So it allowed me to really focus on making it make sense in Gaelic, because I suppose one of the big things with these games, right, is that us in the nerddom, we take for granted what's written in these rule books, right? We just read, make a constitution saving throw, blah, blah, blah. But it's jargon, right? It's weird jargon. And if you showed the Dungeons and Dragons book from today to somebody in the 60s, it'd be like, I speak English, but I have no clue what that's saying. So in Gaelic, it was a matter of finding a way to properly represent what it meant while being aware that the readers were not, didn't have 50 years of role-playing games baggage behind them to help them understand it. So I was glad that there were positive returns and, did actually make sense. I didn't want to write something in a brand new Gaelic. I thought I want somebody who speaks Gaelic to pick it up and understand what it means, So
yeah, like my parents were pretty much. They said they loved it. They said they didn't understand, because they don't understand what a role. They're of that age. They just cannot understand. But they said like the Gaelic and all that. They really enjoyed all that part. They were quite impressed with it. So that was two kind of old crofters she managed to.
Well, I'm glad that's a goal. The thing is, like, all of these rules, they mean something pretty straightforward if you think about it. So every once in a while, it's happened to me to be stuck with a word, be like, oh, how do I translate this properly? And I just ask a crofter nearby, or if I visit an elder, I'm like, oh, how would you say this in Gaelic? And they'll always have a way to, and you just kind of, you have to think in the language. I suppose one of the big issues for me in Gaelic translation and any minority language translation is that there is this temptation to calque the dominant language, right? To find a perfect equivalent for everything.
Yeah.
But I think the best way is to think about what does it mean, and that's what you translate, not what it says, but what it means. And so in Cairn, every once in a while I had to like shift a couple of things around. I didn't change the rules in any way, shape, or form, but maybe switch 2 sentences over because in Gaelic the flow of the way it meant something would be more natural. So it was more like the search for making it Gaelic. And maybe, and I'm glad that you're telling me that when you read it, you thought, oh, that sounds like it's from Scotland, because it means I managed to make it look like that was the intended.
You wouldn't think it was a translated work, and you would not even attempt to guess that if it was, that the author was not at least from the UK or Europe in some capacity. Just the style of everything, it's just so fitting of that. But it's like what you say about the translate, because Gaelic is quite strange, some of our expressions and idioms. Like the most famous one, like when I speak to people, foreigners who are quite interested in Gaelic and like how we say things, is the Gaelic for a nosebleed is very strange. Well, when you translate it literally, with Roy lame, my nose has jumped. It's like, so that's kind of like, so I can see like the challenge of do a constitution saving throw. You can't just take those words literally one by one. You have to find something that conveys the meaning, don't you?
Oh yeah, definitely. But it's not. I mean, I have backgrounds in translation, so I guess you get trained in that sort of techniques. But I think when you go back to trying to figure out what the English means rather than what the English says, you realize sometimes things are a bit heavy for nothing, Yeah. And I remember I used to work in a Gaelic job that was in a big British corporation. So most things were in English, but our team was Gaelic. And in English, I would get all the emails with corporate lingo. But in Gaelic, you had none of this, because Gaelic goes straight to the point, because it didn't build decades and decades of corporate jargon. And so that's what I try to approach with translating as well, is like, you don't need it.
Yeah. The sport for people all across the world, adults at the time, but also youngsters. And I think any youngster, you're saying 12-year-old, you don't know who you are. There's a phrase, give me the child at 7 and I'll show you the man. But I think kids, and especially geeks for some reason, can always see, kids can see what's right and wrong a lot more easily before you're programmed into your adult life. And almost any kid watching the likes of Star Trek can see what's right and wrong, and they see an example of somebody saying that's wrong, even if they're living in a circumstance where everything is wrong around them, and they're gradually accepting it. They see something like that and they go, no, I was right. That kind of stuff is wrong.
Right.
I
think it's amazing to have that kind of, validation in the media around you, isn't it? It's like as we're talking about like formative things, actually to have your kids watching something like Star Trek, where it is like, there's complex themes, there's a lot of emotions going on, there's a lot of different bit, but actually for them to be able to say, hey, you know what, this is a good message and this is something that you can carry forward, it is important to be able to see that. And it's great that it gives that opportunity for, as we said, like such a range of ages. You could watch it through your whole life and see something different.
And because it's an established property, like it's the gift that keeps on giving. So someone being new to it I envy folks who are new to Star Trek about now, because you've like 50 some years of content to catch up on. Like,
I've got so much to do.
For the first time, like watching Next Generation's Best of Both Worlds cliffhanger episodes
for the very first time.
Like, people nowadays will never know what that summer was like. Summer was awful because like what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you
He's going to fire up a card. What's happening?
What do you mean?
We were all terribly vexed.
All of us. Do you not find though that sometimes, this is a slight tangent, but that with like streaming services and things like now, you're never gonna get that quite like that genuine like shock value of, hang on a second, I'm not gonna be able to find this out for another week. Like, what? How am I supposed to live?
Yeah.
Like, what happens in between now and
who've
then?
grown up in the modern era of, media distribution will never know what it's like to wait a week unless that's the release format of the series. So you have to constantly keep it moving. You have to. If even contextually within Star Trek, if people weren't constantly pushing boundaries, how would the Federation have been able to A, rope in the Klingons, B, rope in the Romulans to defeat the Dominion? How? How are they going to do that without being willing to compromise to an extent? How are we getting home from the literal opposite side of everything that we know in this ship that's a prototype and can get sick, by the way,
by cheese,
with a Talaxian guide?
Yeah, well, it was something that was totally unexpected. I sometimes think it was a gift from the gods. So I can't believe that this is actually that my experience with Navi is now 20 years old. So back in 2005, I was professor at the University of Southern California. But even though I'm a linguist with a doctorate in linguistics, I was not actually teaching in the linguistics department, but rather was teaching in the business school. And at the time, it turns out that James Cameron was looking for a linguist who could develop a language for a new science fiction film. We didn't know it was called Avatar. I think the code name was Project 880 or something like that. And so he and his production company, Lightstorm Entertainment, did kind of the natural thing. And that's where I included these sounds that everyone seems to be interested in. They're called ejectives. And they're normal consonants found in many languages. They're found in parts of Africa, in Ethiopia, for example. They're found in parts of Asia. They're found in a lot of Native American languages. And they're sort of popping consonants. They sound like ah and oo and eh. Orthographically, I wound up spelling them with an X. So the P ejective is and it would be spelled PXA. By the way, are those sounds coming across? Because sometimes the software will filter the sound out and try to gloss over it. Okay, great. So he liked those, and so ejectives are a big part of Navi phonology. Yeah. The task, if you like, or the project of teaching Navi has really fallen on the Navi community, what we call the Litfiaolo, the language community, language clan, language tribe. They're a remarkable group of very, very dedicated fans and very, very dedicated people who, some of whom have learned the language to the point where they and this is not false modesty. They actually speak it better than I do, and they are more fluent, and they write it better than I do, and they come up with some incredibly wonderful stuff. And they have developed some remarkable teaching materials. We now have two different online sites. One is called learnnavi.org, and the other is called Kelutral, which means home tree. And each one has wonderful learning resources. And anyone who wants to learn a language can contact one of these sites and actually kind of hook up with a mentor and be channeled to some of these learning resources. I mean, one example I like to give is the Navi don't have 5 fingers or 5 digits, they have 4. And so as I was thinking about that, it occurred to me their counting system is probably not based on 10. It's probably an octal based on 8, octal counting system. So I approached Jim Cameron. I said, what do you think? And he said, absolutely, it's based on 8. And so now the Navi counting system is based on base 8. But
nice try.
But I can tell you something about the second film, Avatar: The Way of Water. So my assignment for that was specifically to come up with a different dialect.
Okay.
And that was a very interesting assignment. And so if you want to do something which is linguistically valid along those lines, you have to think in terms of history. I mean, linguists use the term synchronic and diachronic.
But it was a film called Oliver, and the sets on Oliver, the musical, if you ever see it, are extraordinary. The canals, everything. And I was kind of at odds with everybody because they were all in suits and ties, and I come from art school and hair down here and Cuban boots. And I was in the art cinemas every weekend in London, just watching every foreign movie I could get my hands on, particularly Kurosawa, and he was my mentor. And I was always told, stop watching all that arty stuff. This is a career, you know. And John Box mentored me. He really kind of fathered me actually through everything. And I would escape and go and look at the sets because I wanted to see how it was. And I was immediately told, get back in the office. You're not allowed out. And third time strike out, you'll be fired. But I would have none of it. And I learned everything from John Box throughout my entire career, even to this day. He was a master of aging sets. And finally, when they all knew I could draw and I could do all of this stuff, John gave me a prop. He gave me a box and said, could you make Fagin's box? And this is the first prop I ever made. And I thought, well, I have to make this look really old. So it took me weeks. I was at home burning it with torches, and I was aging it with boot polish and getting it down. And I wanted it to be indistinguishable. And I that's probably where this career kind of took off. And then I had to, I just was so bored with this tea making and coffee and endless all day long. So I started to make worse and worse tea. Having shored up my position, they knew I could draw. I watched them grimace when I left the room. So I got promoted and I drew up one of the canals. That was my first set I ever did, and I drew up a canal and I aged it all down and made it look like an old Victorian canal, and that's where it really started. And I leapfrogged. You know, I had an offer to go to Rediffusion Television, in which I was told that's your death of your career. You'll never work, because in those days TV was frowned on. But you know, I joined this amazing period TV series being done with the art director, and I was with him down at Ighton Moat in Kent. And he said, I got to go back and design the sets and get them built. Can you take over? And so I was plunged right then into dealing with the director and getting everything right. So again, these are amazing experiences that I took the risk on. And then the first art director I saw, Charlie Bishop, was starting Randall and Hopkirk Deceased. So he invited me to go on that. and I was on the drawing board to start with, and he saw how bored I was, and I drew up a set that was for a crazed artist. And at exactly the same time, I'd heard the set decorator that the schedules were punishing. He unfortunately had a mental breakdown, and they didn't think he was coming out. I got called down to the set that I'd drawn up, and I thought, oh, I'm going to get fired because they can't shoot it. And the director said, this is the best set we've ever had. And they said, would you like to be the set decorator? And that was it. I leapfrogged my career by 20 years of sitting on a drawing board trying to work my way up. And that's really how it came about in a short version. Well, when I was doing it, I was alone on this department, and the decorator handles all of the designer would build a set. He'd design it and build it. We had to put everything that went into that set. So you're like an interior decorator. Same for locations. We handled all the weapons. We handled all the props, every single prop on a set, and vehicles. I mean, we handled the whole lot. I actually met Christopher Nolan here in Toronto when he was here with Dunkirk, and he's a big Star Wars fan. He looked at me and he said, you did it all on your own. I don't know how you did it. He said, nowadays everything's divided up. One man does cars, one man does guns, one man does tables and chairs. They break it all up. I was on my own. That's really how it was, and I prefer it that way than being broken up.
Lena, have we got another season 1 standout?
Well, can I say in a bad sense, like the one that needs to be split?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, well, like I said, like I feel quite fuzzy about all of them, even the awkward ones. But I think if I had to pick one to get rid of, it would be Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. Just because, well, the guy is quite off-putting, and also it just doesn't make sense why Buffy would want to date him. So I guess like maybe it started as a joke of like never kiss a boy on a first date.
And then they kind of...
But yeah.
I also have to agree, and so far as to say that I think I sometimes forget that episode exists. I actually, you know what I mean? Like, I think I actually forget about it. And then when I do my, I was going to say annual rewatch, but probably like weekly rewatch of Buffy. I actually do every time I see it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that episode. So I was like, oh, I kind of felt not really in keeping with the pace and the theme and the people and the story. It always just feels slightly like kind of out here. Like as if they, as you kind of say, like they kind of played with the title and then somebody wrote it and they went, yeah, all right, we'll do that. And it doesn't feel very in keeping. Yeah. No, totally. Okay, so I'm definitely on team. We can put Never Kill a Boy on the First Date in the sort of, I don't want to say the bin. It feels harsh. It's quite saying the bin, but you know what I mean. I feel like I would happily, if I had to pick one,
what is the bin?
That is the one I would veto. Yeah, that is the one I would veto from season 1. That is great. Oh, a veto, yes. Okay, yeah, maybe we'll have to, as we do this, we should do like a veto episode. That's good. That's good, Elena. I love that. Anything else? Any other negatives, actually, guys? Hey, Melina, anything else that really stands out as a no?
I'm not a fan of Teacher's Pet. In fact, there's a couple. I think there was a couple of back-to-back there that it was that similar kind of
that, and then the pack, like,
oh yeah,
like, oh, like,
well, it's also like a category of episodes that didn't age well, which actually is not really typical for Buffy.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder who was involved in writing them. That we could find out. Yeah, I have to agree. Didn't age well. Not at all. Not a bit.
they were just so very much that kind of monster of the week format without the overarching narrative that we end up getting. Yeah, just really not a fan of those ones.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good point. I think that Teacher's Pet also, and again, as we were saying, about sort of like, you know, things that will come up again in later episodes, I'm sure. Like the fact that obviously the eggs are growing at the end, right? I kind of like that. I kind of enjoyed that, but I'm sad we never saw it again. Like, why was that not part of the creatures or beasties that came out late? You know what I mean? Like something that kind of harked back, and then you can all have that kind of giggle. Whereas I think that a lot of the times there are repeating jokes that happen later seasons where you go, yeah, I remember that episode. And that's fine. But you also kind of go, I wish we'd seen that monster again, or in a different way. Just to kind of clean it up.
Even one line.
Yeah.
Even if they put one line into the I'll Never Tell song.
Yes, I'll never tell.
You know,
yeah. Yeah, something.
Where Anya's
kind of...
regaling all the things, all the negatives that Xander had in the past. Let's chuck him there. You know, nearly got eaten by.
Yeah, I feel like, forgive me for I feel like there must be some kind of hark back in some way where he makes like a joke about his taste in whip, like something about to do taste with women that they're always trying to get him, and I think that's to do with Inca Mummy Girl. But other than that, I can't remember. Well, I'm sure we will cut with like, but it's like one of them.
It's
where,
the
like,
same episode.
yeah, it's just kind of like interesting that we have done this format. I see. Elena, have we got another season 1 standout?
Well, can I say in a bad sense, like the one that needs to be split?
Yes, of course you can.
Yeah, well, like I said, like I feel quite fuzzy about all of them, even the awkward ones. But I think if I had to pick one to get rid of, it would be Never Kill a Boy on the First Date. Just because, well, the guy is quite off-putting, and also it just doesn't make sense why Buffy would want to date him. So I guess like maybe it started as a joke of like never kiss a boy on a first date,
and then they kind of.
But yeah,
I also have to agree, and so far as to say that I think I sometimes forget that episode exists. I actually, you know what I mean? Like, I think I actually forget about it. And then when I do I was going to say annual rewatch, but probably like weekly rewatch of Buffy. I actually do every time I see it and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that episode. So I was like, oh, I kind of felt not really in keeping with the pace and the theme and the people and the story. It always just feels slightly like kind of out here. Like as if as you kind of say, like they kind of played with the title and then somebody wrote it and they went, yeah, all right, we'll do that. And it doesn't feel very in keeping. Yeah. No, totally. Okay, so I'm definitely on team. We can put Never Kill a Boy on the First Date in the sort of, I don't want to say the bin. It feels harsh. It's quite saying the bin, but you know what I mean. I feel like I would happily, if I had to pick one,
what is the bin?
That is the one I would veto. Yeah, that is the one I would veto from season 1. That is great. Oh, a veto, yes. Okay, yeah, maybe we'll have to, as we do this, we should do like a veto episode. That's good. That's good, Elena. I love that. Anything else? Any other negatives, actually, guys? Hey, Melina, anything else that really stands out?
Yeah,
as a no.
I'm not a fan of Teacher's Pet. In fact, there's a couple. I think there was a couple of back-to-back there that it was that similar kind of
that, and then the pack, like,
oh yeah,
like, oh, like,
well, it's also like a category of episodes that didn't age well, which actually is not really typical for Buffy.
Yeah. Actually, I wonder who was involved in writing them. That we could find out. Yeah, I have to agree. Didn't age well.
Not at all. Not a bit.
They were just so very much that kind of monster of the week format without the overarching narrative that we end up getting. Yeah, just really not a fan of those ones.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, really good point. I think that Teacher's Pet also, and again, as we were saying, about sort of like, you know, things that will come up again in later episodes, I'm sure. Like the fact that obviously the eggs are growing at the end, right? I kind of like that. I kind of enjoyed that, but I'm sad we never saw it again. Like, why was that not part of the creatures or beasties that came out late? You know what I mean? Like something that kind of harked back, and then you can all have that kind of giggle. Whereas I think that a lot of the times there are repeating jokes that happen later seasons where you go, yeah, I remember that episode. And that's fine. But you also kind of go, I wish we'd seen that monster again, or in a different way. Just to kind of clean it up.
Even one line.
Yeah.
Even if they put one line into the I'll Never Tell song.
Yes, I'll never tell.
You know,
yeah. Yeah, something.
Where Anya's
kind of...
regaling all the things, all the negatives that Xander had in the past. Let's chuck him there. You know, nearly got eaten by.
Yeah, I feel like, forgive me for wrong, I feel like there must be some kind of hark back in some way where he makes like a joke about his taste in whip, like something about to do taste with women that they're always trying to get him, and I think that's to do with Inca Mummy Girl. But other than that, I can't remember. Well, I'm sure we will cut with like, but it's like one of them.
It's
where,
the
like,
same episode.
Yeah, it's just kind of like interesting that we have done this format. I see,
but I normally just try to educate people as much as I can about comics. I actually have a T-shirt. I'm not wearing it today, but it says "Comics are a medium, not a genre," because
I like that.
Yes, I do wear it to conventions and so on, because a lot of people think that comics is just one thing. It's just one type of stories, and it's such a shame because, as I said before, there's such variety. And I also had a bit of kind of stigma from artists who work in other media. So, for example, fine artists, painters, sculptors, they obviously see comics as something, or, you know, it's not even proper art or anything, you know, which is such a shame. So I was once introduced by a sculptor you know, she draws comic strips. I don't draw comic strips. I draw manga, I draw graphic novels. I don't do comic strips. You know, but for some people it's all the same, sadly, you know.
It amazes me that people are so slow, because it's taken schools ages to catch up and become aware of how important they are, especially with, you know, readers of different abilities, and also young people who are more visually aware than sort of writing. It's just a different part of the brain. And you know, I sort of grew up with appreciating picture books, and people thinking picture books are something only for small children, and just not realizing, you know, the genius of the illustration and the artwork. It's just there's still a long way to go.
But you know, one thing I noticed in particular, and actually that is in a recent report by CSIC, which is Comics a Cultural Impact Collective. So whilst there's a dip of reading enjoyment generally among people who read comics, there's actually an increased interest, and that's with children and adults. And what I also
that's amazing.
And what I saw as well, so I often see children just walking from school reading a graphic novel, and it's brilliant to see, because, you know, sometimes when children go to high school and reading becomes really uncool, and that uncoolness does not spread onto comics. You know, comics are still, you know, they're still
cool. It's brilliant. Maybe they are cool because schools and some libraries, you know, not all, slightly look down on them, so they should continue just for this psychological, you know, benefit.
Possibly, yes.
No, can't have that.
Because there was a YouTube video I saw recently. It was a teacher who was like telling it was an information about how they were trying to get their students to get excited about Shakespeare. And she said the one thing I did it was she got a graphic novel of Hamlet distributed, and that was it.
Yes.
Just that set it all.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not a Shakespeare person myself, but I could see how that would work.
Yes.
Yeah. Because the storytelling behind it just comes across.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yes, I think all those years ago, manga Shakespeare was like one of the first things that, became mainstream. I think it's actually approved by Shakespeare Society, and it's now almost like a staple in most schools. And it's because the storytelling is so alternative. Romeo and Juliet, for example, it's set in Japan, and Juliet rides a bike. She's like this really cool lady. She's not the victim. So it's brilliant.
Yeah. And that's what your T-shirt. It's a medium, not a genre.
Absolutely, yes.
You can take anything. And I think it's people before just tried to diminish it into, and even comic strips. They take skill, they take talent. You can tell more in those 3 pictures or 4 images a page than a lot of people could take in a Yeah,
it's like even like the single panels you see for Private Eye, like they get across so much and they're so sharp, but no one says that's just that's a silly picture. You can see that there's some thought going into that.
I am a member of the Klingon Language Institute. That was kind of a foregone conclusion. I went to my first Kepa in 2015, so about a year after my EP release, and I haven't missed a Kepa since. It's my favorite place. It's like nerd family reunion every year, and they just welcomed me in. Even with that first EP, when I was working with other translators at that point, like I was working with members of the KLI, they had sent me translations of songs that they had already translated. So that was probably like one of the cool things, was like that first EP were all songs people had already translated years before in some cases, and I just kind of collected them and then was like, do you mind if I record these? And they were like, go for it. And so then, but when it came time to do the next EP, I had ideas about songs I wanted to do. And at that point, then I had established a level of credibility with the Klingon language community that I would do the language justice musically, vocally, and that I cared about singing it properly as well. And so I was able to ask people for specific songs. I was like, hey, I would really like to do this song. Would anybody be interested in translating it? And people jumped on it. And then by my third EP at that point, 2016 to 2017 was when I started really studying. Starting around 2017 is when I started being comfortable enough to start translating my own songs. And so my third EP, a lot of the songs on there were translated by me. And then fourth and fifth EPs were all translated by me, which was really, really cool.
Wow. And I'm just curious, like, what's the process of translating some of these songs? And is it quite difficult, or is there, how much work I'll just take, for example, like, say the Frozen song. Like,
which I didn't do, so I can't lay claim to that one. That was translated by Felix Malmenbach. Felix actually is responsible for a lot of the heavy lifting with the Duolingo app. Actually,
okay.
The Duolingo app, like it's so funny listening to the Duolingo app, like when it's like listen to the phrase and like which is the correct one, because I recognize so many of the voices because it's all like KLI members. But that song was translated by Felix, so I can't speak to what his process is there. But with mine, it's really interesting because it's so song dependent. Like, I really like doing pop songs. Like, I've had people ask if I would translate or do originals or whatever, and I'm always like, no, probably not. And I really like doing covers because they're recognizable. So it makes it more accessible to people beyond being Star Trek fans. Like, I can walk into any convention, it doesn't matter, and they're going to recognize Don't Stop Believin'. They're going to recognize, like, people are going to recognize No Scrubs. They're going to recognize, like, these songs are going to be, and so I really like doing that. And also I really love translating songs because once you get the chorus, you've got like half the song translated already. So there's like a little bit of a like the barrier to entry is a little bit easier with them as well, because typically the grammar's kind of simple, the concepts are kind of simple when it comes to pop music. Like that's sort of that's just pop music. So for me, it's really interesting because I have the songs that I wanted to translate, I was like, oh, this would be such a good song in Klingon for whatever reason, like Die Young by Kesha, like whatever, kind of makes sense. But then when I started doing stuff for my annual charity event that I've been doing for the last this is year 11, and letting people pick the songs for me to translate, that's when stuff started to get really, really interesting. Because it's like, how do you take Cyndi Lauper's Time After Time,
all right,
and make that song applicable to Klingons? Because I don't like necessarily doing word for word translations. I want it to make cultural sense to Klingons. So that song was one of the few songs where I actually didn't translate the chorus right away, because I had to figure out what the song was about before I could figure out what the chorus was, because there was not a grammatically good way to say time after time. So that song literally translates the phrase instead is vibcha tikwij, which means my heart travels back in time.
Does that kind of influence your work, do you think, if that's true?
Yeah, that was just
having those
so
two
funny.
cultures.
I was just down in my parents' house just now because I was telling you the podcaster guys that we've had no power today, so I was refugeeing at my mum's house, and all of our stuff is there, and there's from when I was in Africa, and there's these really, really nice postcards from of all like these animals that we've seen in Africa. And I used to draw them, and I used to go safarying and just draw lots of animals and everything. I don't really draw a lot of animals anymore, but I really do love drawing animals, but no one hires me to draw animals. It's really weird. I just draw humans now.
Yeah, another feeling.
Someone hired me to draw animals. I really like drawing them. But yeah, so being out there in Africa with no internet, being really bored and just drawing and creating things, and so yeah, it does like influence you because it's so beautiful.
So, and I'm guessing, so like The Lion King probably was a big thing for you when you saw that, kind of having that background, what they did
Yeah,
there.
but that was so what was that?
94. It came out the year I was born.
Oh, right.
Yeah, 94.
Almost right. You're too young. You're so little. The year you're born. Oh my god. So I was in school, and it was such a huge film. I think they got most of the animals right, because when you grow up in Africa, you know all the animals and everything. And I was just studying books about animals back and forth, and most of those animals are right. But when you look at Tarzan, I'm such an animal nerd, and it's just like, those animals don't exist in that part of the world. They have lemurs. It's supposed to be in Uganda.
Yeah. And is it true, like, you kind of found like the DeviantArt community while you were doing the Comic Cons? You discovered that?
Yeah, so that's kind of a thing that I always kind of speak really fondly of that, because it's kind of not really a thing that can be kind of realized again, because it's just an online community where there was just such a huge outpouring of love and support and everything. And I got to travel the world with people. Like I would hook on to artists and that I would really admire, and then I'd be like, "Where do you live? Australia? I'm gonna come to Australia." And I think they thought, "Oh, silly Tanya just saying stuff," but I would just turn up and stay with them and chill out. That's how we went to all these cons in like California and New Zealand and all these places. So that was really fun, and it just wouldn't happen now. It seems like it's not really, social media's job isn't about kind of I mean, I suppose there are maybe pockets where it's purely kind of community and everything, but it just seems so hate-filled, and because there's too much of it, you know?
Yeah.
It's so huge, but this is when it was a small community, and I still do get people coming up to me and saying, "Oh, maybe a DeviantArt," and I try to run away.
Yeah, that was feeling.
Because of myself, a lot of stuff that I drew back then. Because that, you get into things, and that's how you learn how to draw, and you learn how you're going to draw and what you're going to draw, and your style and everything.
Yeah.
You get inspired, and then you draw questionable stuff, and then it's out there. It's fine.
Yeah, definitely.
You just have to own it.
Yeah, just got to admit it.
Can't delete it. It's out there.
All right, Kieran, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, sure. So, referring to how you got inspired to draw, and like where you originally started, what was the first comic that you ever did on a professional level?
I think it was Star Wars.
Okay.
I think it was Star Wars, and again, that was weird because it was DeviantArt. So I was on DeviantArt, and the editor reached out to me on DeviantArt.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, right, weird.
Yeah.
Guy.
You were like, yeah, this is totally legit.
Yeah, I've come across those.
But it was, and he's So I think we just went to email after that. But then I was doing that for many years, and you can get kind of these kind of jobs through social media.
Mm-hmm.
It's rarer, but in those days you kind of got people looking for you.
Yeah.
Whereas now you go to conventions and you seek out editors. You try to figure out who's on what book and who do you need to speak to and stuff like that. And it's a lot of graft, but it's the job.
And then I learned that I couldn't, unless it was a big fight that we pre-planned in advance. Almost all of the fights I would choreograph 1 hour before the fight, 1 hour before shooting, because I learned that there were so many changes going on with Buffy and the script, and things would change, and our schedule would change. Everything was changing, and I would have to be ready. So I would wait to choreograph. I would have an idea based on what Joss and I talked about, but then I would wait to intricately choreograph everything 1 hour before, and that made it possible to adapt and make everything fresh based on the set, what the final set turned out to be, and how much time I had.
I'm going to say, how much? I suppose this is something I hear often when I watch making of documentaries. Is how much did Sarah want to do? How much did you have to tell her, no, you can't do that? Was she very keen to do it all herself?
Sorry, man, you're breaking up again.
All right. I was saying, can you hear me now? Yeah, saying, yes. With Sarah particularly, did you have to hold her back a lot? Did she want to do a lot of stuff herself? Was she very keen to do a lot of the fights?
Who, Sarah?
Sarah.
No, because typically this is where I'm different from other stunt coordinators. You're supposed to sit there and say, oh, the actor was incredible, but she didn't really have any martial arts skills at all, right? She was like imagine just a young girl, right? A young 100-pound girl, and that was it. So she had kind of originally, remember Julie Benz, right? The actress Julie Benz or something. Originally, they considered Julie Benz was going to play Buffy and Sarah was going to play Cordelia, which she would have been great at. She's excellent. She could play perfectly. But Sarah thought, well, I would like to be the star if I could. So she told them a little white lie, which actors do all the time, which was that she had this martial arts background. And so the producers told me when I met them, they said, I knew Sophia was doubling Sarah, and I already knew that she couldn't do martial arts. But when I met the producers, the first thing they said was, well, when you start making these fights, you got to think about Sarah, because, the first day, as soon as we got out there, we saw this girl doesn't know anything about martial arts. And I said, don't worry. She knew what a back fist was, and she knew what a front kick was. So it's just a matter of getting her to start the motion. And then we cut to Sophia doing the kick or whatever it is. And that's all we need. We just need her action, her upper body action to start it. And then I'll have her stake the guy at the end. And then you've got it. We can move. We can get a lot done that way. So, but no, she never was like, oh, let me do this. Today, she's probably like that because she's actually more physical today after getting married to Freddie. This is the funny thing too about it is, well, during the making of Buffy, she would sit in her chair and just read fashion magazines while we made the fight. And then I would bring her out and do those 3 or 4 shots, right? 2 to 4 shots I would do with her. And then that was it. And she would often just wear her tennis shoes. We had a plan, what we called the Buffy boots. We would try to make the fight scenes happen while Buffy was wearing these particular boots, which was easier for Sophia to fight in. And we would try to make the clothing, like you were talking about the wardrobe, like say in the prom outfit, she had to do some fighting in that. Things like that was difficult, but we tried to make it most of the time when she was fighting to be wearing something that you could move in with pants that would stretch and move, and wearing those what we called the Buffy boots. But Sarah would just wear tennis shoes because you didn't even have to see her feet. She would come out there in her tennis shoes. We'd do our shots, and she would go back, and sometimes she would just stay in the trailer and do other stuff because she had so many changes in the script. She would be getting changes to the next scene she was going to have to act in. This is what amazed me about the actors on Buffy, was they would get new versions of the script. They had already prepared themselves to do a scene, and now the script has changed to where that scene is different. It's completely different. The dialogue is different. So she would be in the trailer going over her dialogue for the next thing, and she knew we were taking care of the fight. She wasn't worried about the fight. So then she would come out and do whatever we asked her to do, and that was it. So no, she was never like going crazy about wanting to do anything because she knew, there's no reason, just you get injured. And
it is a beloved film. It's become a cult film, this one. You saw the one I mentioned, Graham. I don't think do you see what I wrote in the group chat?
No, I didn't. Sorry. So
again, I was a student in Glasgow in 1998, 97, I think this film was in. This is a film nobody actually went to watch. I went to watch the second I saw the trailer. I have to see it, and it was the Odeon on Sauchiehall Street. It's now long gone. Event Horizon.
Can't say it's.
Some people deride this film, and others shall defend it passionately. Graham, you've seen it. Where do you stand on this one?
I will defend it. I will absolutely defend it. It's, yeah.
Can I take a brief blurb? Can you what's happening in this? Because I've never seen it.
Well,
I have no idea of its existence.
Interesting. Are you aware of Warhammer by any chance? Because this is a fan theory that went forward.
Warhammer and I have dabbled.
Yes, okay.
So only a little bit. I've dabbled.
Because it's now been speculated this film is a prequel to Warhammer. In a weird way. Well, so it's basically set 2064 or something. And there's a prototype spaceship which is designed for faster than light flight. It activates its drive, it disappears. 10 years later, it appears over Neptune, isn't it, Graham?
Yes.
And Sam Neill, he's the guy who designed the ship. He's going out with a rescue ship to investigate what happened. And then just spooky shit starts happening on the ship. Basically, the ship, they read the ship is actually alive somehow. And then you find out it basically went to a chaos dimension and came back and brought that. There's that chaos spirit. It's never explained, but this is what I took. The chaos spirit is attached to the ship. And then there's one thing, Graham, I don't know, do you think Sam Neill went to that dimension himself originally?
I think
this is something
did.
Because it's very well speculated, like when he appears on the rescue ship, like you don't see him being debriefed, he just kind of appears on their ship, and then one day is he trying to guide this crew to take the ship back to the other dimension.
Yeah, I think he probably did.
So it's a mixture of Alien and Shining Space. I will say an amazing cast: Sam Neill, Lawrence Fishburne, Jason Isaacs, Jolie Richardson. All really, and
My goodness.
Yes, the only one that stands out is what was his name? J.T. Cooper. Is that the name of the actor? Well, it's the Cooper character anyway.
Yeah.
I can't remember who played it, but he feels like he was taken in from a Michael Bay film. Because he's there to say sassy lines all the time, which make no sense in the context of, like, it's utter horror.
I kind of love and hate the way that we both just understood that. Me not having seen it and Graham having seen it, and we both just went, I see.
Yes.
But yeah, it's basically when they get to the spaceship, there's accidents happen, and they're stuck on the event horizon trying to get off, and they're all starting to hallucinate badly. They're seeing just quite somewhat. The production design on this film is amazing. It is like so visually rich. Strange because of who the director is, that this film is so beloved. Is he Paul W.S. Anderson or Paul Anderson?
I think it's just Paul Anderson. Is it the Mortal
Kombat guy?
Yeah.
Resident Evil.
Mm-hmm.
He directed all of those wonderful bits of cinema. But this film, like, he'd finished Mortal Kombat and he just wanted to do something serious. And he's a guy, like, I watch interviews, and he comes across the loveliest guy you could have a conversation with. But most of his films are absolute dross to watch.
Oh.
It's that an amazing soundtrack. It's a mixture of Michael Kamen and The Orb. And this techno dreads, it's like just a really amazing soundtrack.
I'm just going to be making a list off what your guys' recommendations are.
Right.
I'm just going to say, like, and The Orb, it's like combination.
Yes.
Very good. Yeah, excellent. I'm having a lovely time.
Graham, you can pipe in with some of your opinions on Event Horizon.
No, I was just because I think you have your description of it being sort of Alien meets The Shining is beyond perfect, actually. That is the ultimate description of it for me.
Yeah, and just like I say, a really rich production design. Like, it looks like almost like a Ridley Scott film, this, which is so strange considering who the director is. But like, it's just very creepy.